Hello, welcome to the Trophy Trust, your weekly podcast for PlayStation Trophy Hunters. This is episode number 34. I'm one of your hosts, the Dazil, and joining me today we have the Vectronic.
Hello.
We have Claire88.
Hello, guys.
And making his podcast debut, we have Kai Phoenix.
Hello there.
Evening, afternoon, good day, whatever time it is you're listening to this. We're recording actually a little bit earlier today than we usually do. I've actually got some sunshine pouring in the windows for once, which is nice. It's a nice change. It's a really nice day. It seems like here in the UK, it seems like the almost eternal winter, the Game of Thrones-esque winter, is starting to lift, and we're actually getting some little bit of warmth today. It is a scorching 15 degrees Celsius outside compared to all the crappy rain and snow and all sorts. So yeah, it's just pleasant. I'm in a pleasant mood because of the weather. How is everyone? How has everyone been? Beck, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine and dandy. The week has been rough, but it's been very fine actually.
Good to hear.
Yeah, how about you, Claire? How have you been doing?
All good in my end. Right?
He's been very busy, very involved in his games, which I'm sure we'll talk about in just a moment. And Kaya, how are you doing? Like I said, it's your first time on the Trophy Trust podcast. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, we've been trying to organise this for a good 2 weeks or so now, and
it's longer. It's longer.
It's probably, yeah.
It's really, just trying to get everyone's sort of schedules all
Yeah.
into place is so tricky.
But
basically, the way I see it in regards to like aligning everyone up with a podcast is like, you know, those like fairground games where it's like you know, like where you drop a coin in the top and then it drops down between all little bars, and then, you know, it kind of goes ding 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 ding, and then it kind of falls into one of the many sort of slots in the bottom. It's like random. That's how it feels. Trying to.
Do you mean like is it called pachinko or something? Do you mean pachinko? Is that right? Is it like I think it's on like The Price is Right or something, right? Like they throw the disc down.
Yeah, and
things
kind of like
randomly it goes. Yeah,
that's pachinko.
I think that's it.
That's how it feels like trying to get everyone lined up. It's like where will it drop? You know, it's random.
But yeah, I'm finally on, which is good. Which is very nice. Thanks for the invite. I much appreciate it. Currently very tired, very tired.
Well,
I will explain why, but it's too long to explain. So yeah,
that's right. Podcasts aren't very physically demanding, so I'm sure you'll be fine.
I'll be awake this time. It's fine.
Right. So let's talk some video games, shall we? It's been a week since our last episode, and we've all, you know, been plenty busy with video games as well as, you know, the demands of real life. So let's have a little chat about what we've been playing. And I tell you what, let's ask Vec first. Vec, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been playing much of Little Big Planet karting since the servers are going to be shutting down soon. I'm going to be playing that. So I started off the physical version this week, but one of the things that happened was that that I realized that my digital save file is different from the actual physical save file, so I have to 100% the game on the story mode, but thankfully I already did that on the digital version, so all I have to do is just work on the multiplayer trophies and the create trophies, and that's it.
Oh man, that really sucks when the digital version and the physical version sort of like differ very slightly in either save files, or sometimes when people, I remember in the past, people have downloaded the digital one and then bought the physical one, it's not quite compatible, you know. But at least you've got it all done, though. At least it's not something you have to do again, or it's like you install like a second trophy list, which I imagine would have been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest.
No, it's just one trophy list altogether, and it's quite neatly. So working on those multiplayer trophies, though, oh my god, they're so simple, but at the same time they're buggy as all hell. So
oh yeah, give us an example.
Okay, so there's some community levels that you have to play, but some community trophies don't register. But I'll get to those later. But one of the bigger ones is basically you basically will have to have some friends over to play together in order to host the trophy. But the problem is only the host gets the trophy and nobody else. So you have to join to multiple, and the connection is so like sensitive that even getting 4 people together is just a pain. So it's just easier to get one other person and an extra controller each. And I did it a couple of nights ago, and it was very easy. But at the same time, I popped it, but the other person didn't. So I just said, okay, I know what's the problem. The trophy says host, so I have to go to your and do it, and I have to connect it again, and it's just a pain in the ass because the connections on the NA servers are fucking weak. So
you last week you set up a new channel here in our Discord server to help with boosting. Have you had much activity in that? Many people stepped up?
Yes, maybe people step up, but at the same time, we're keeping it at down low because I'm still writing. I finished writing the guide. I just have to like I already published it on the channel itself, but people have been clamoring for a Google Doc, so much easier to read. So I'm gonna translate to that. Once I'm done with that, the other thing would be waiting for next week because someone else is joining in to help me with the boosting. And once we do that, we're gonna start boosting the 25 raises trophy for first place, which you have to find another person to beat first place in every single one, and those servers are empty. So you have to play each race on an individual track, like first place in every single one. So you have to let people win 25 times, and apparently that trophy is gonna be buggy. So I just want to test it out before we actually. Yep. And
it certainly sounds like an ordeal for sure. I mean, better you than me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and the trophies right now, the rarity at the moment is 2.94% on the platinum. So yeah, it's gonna be quite a journey. but I feel like it's gonna be easy, just a bit. Yeah, just a bit tiring. That's all.
Okay, sure. Well, keep us updated on that in future episodes, and we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
Is that everything you've been playing recently then? Yeah. Just putting all your time into
helping
Little Big Planet
boosting.
Karting? All right, cool. Kai, let's hear what you've been playing recently. What you've been up to?
I'll be honest with you. I've been playing. Well, I haven't really been playing much. The only time I get to play is when I do finish work, and if I'm still awake, I tend to jump onto Monster Hunter at the moment. I know me and Claire have been playing that game on and off. Obviously, we've been joining each other's games now and then to help each other out. But I know Claire's put like way more hours than me. But it's such an addictive game that you can just pick up and play. So I've put a lot of time into it. I think I've put about 150 hours over the past, couple of weeks. But I know Claire's definitely done a lot more than that. It's hard to describe the game. It's hard to get into first off, but once you kind of learn the mechanics of the game and you work with people and you play co-op and stuff, you just get like a really sense of like accomplishment. It's a bit like Bloodborne, a bit like Dark Souls in a way, where each weapon is very unique, offers different play styles and stuff like that. But it's a fantastic game. I always recommend it to everyone and anyone at the moment. It's slowly getting cheaper and cheaper as well, so it's gonna get a lot, and also the new content is constantly getting updated, which is free. Only cosmetic stuff is is paid for. But what else have I been playing? To be honest though, I've been kind of being a trophy whore in a way. I've kind of gone through a bit of my backlog and trying to bust out those easy plats. So I did Square Boy versus Bullies. Obviously did Slide, all the easy stuff. And I've just started the Batman Telltale game as well. I haven't really got very far into it, only like one episode in. But Monster Hunter, and it's pretty much taken a lot of my time, and I'm very happy about that. So
cool.
Yeah, that's the only thing we've been doing.
You mentioned Square Boy versus the Bullies. That's not. I wouldn't call that like a straight up easy platinum. That's like an old sort of retro style brawler. And it does take a bit of not challenge, but it does take a bit of patience, I would say, towards the last couple of levels.
Oh yeah, definitely. They say you can do it in 2 to 3 hours, whatever, which is you can do in 2 to 3 hours. But I was taking breaks. Like it took me 8 hours and 18 minutes to actually complete the whole platinum for that, because there was sometimes I was like getting so frustrated that I would like literally put the controller down and leave it for like a good 2-3 hours. So but
I played it on Vita. The controls aren't great on Vita. The smaller analog sticks have got that smaller turning circle, and but it's kind of like anyone who's not played it. It's kind of like, it reminds me of them sort of old sort of Super Nintendo kind of brawlers like Streets of Rage and like Double Dragon, for example. It's kind of like, you enemies come on the screen, you beat them up and then they disappear. Then you can move on to the next screen and you have like health pickups and stuff on the next screen. It's basically one of that, but like a lot more simpler, like toned down. The characters are way more simpler. They're all kind of like blocks. They kind of look like Super Meat Boy, or that's the best way I can kind of describe it, really, like a yellow Super Meat Boy. But yeah, I wouldn't say like, it's like a easy peasy 1 out of 10 platinum. It does take a little bit of playing and getting used to the controls.
Oh yeah, I've definitely found a very fast way of going through the game. Like if you press double forward and square, which is your attack move, you'll do this dash move. And if you time it correctly, you can dash through the enemy, they'll fall to the floor, and then you can just do it the opposite way as soon as they get back up. So you basically can knock them back and like up and down constantly.
I managed to cheese it a little bit. I can't remember how it was a little while ago, but you can find some moves that are really
like jump and attack, and you'll do like this like flying kick move, and it does quite a bit of damage. But to be honest, I think you can play the whole game in co-op. So if you do have someone around and you all gonna get it done in one super quick session, do it in co-op. But it's not very hard at all. I think there's definitely a lot more harder, easy platinums out there, which take a little bit more time. But this one, it was enjoyable, but I wouldn't play it again. And it's also on sale as well. It's currently half price, which is I think it's usually $3.99 UK pounds.
Yeah, it's right.
It's down to $1.99 at the moment. So if you want a super easy platinum, pick that up. But yeah, it's mostly Monster Hunter, I'm afraid.
All right, cool. Just before we move forward, Nomad Dragon here in the comments said it reminds me of classic arcade Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Simpsons.
Definitely not as good.
No.
Yeah, obviously. The Simpsons arcade, I remember playing that on, it was on PS3 and then Konami delisted it like years and years ago, but they put it on PS3 and Xbox 360. And I remember downloading that and playing that because it was sort of somewhat nostalgic. I didn't really play it in the arcade. I just remember seeing it in arcades, but playing it for the first time. That was a cool little brawler for sure.
Yeah. I say, on that quickly note, basically, talking about the arcade machine, I live near the beach and live near the sea. So I live next to like a seaside town. So there used to be like arcades and stuff there. And in one of the arcades, it had the Simpsons arcade machine, which is like the Konami one. So I remember going down there with like some of my change or my pocket money and going down and just spending all that money in the Simpsons arcade machines. Great memories, that is. But yeah.
I was used to just like playing like House of the Dead and Time Crisis.
Oh yeah.
You could never really play that anywhere else. Like I know they had light guns that you could buy at home, but it was never the same. Like with a proper metal pedal and
no, of course not.
Booming speakers, and like the reload and all of that kind of stuff. It's never quite the same atmosphere. The games are crap. Let's be honest, they're not very good. Designed.
I quite like the story of them. I'm not gonna. Sorry, I'll take it. I've read the Wikipedia of House of the Dead series. I actually quite like the story behind it in a way, which is really weird. And I've actually completed every single House of the Dead game. I used to go to the arcade and like play 2-player on my own, so I'd have both guns in my hand and complete them on my own, which is a bit weird. But I'd literally like shooting outside the screen to reload together, and then shooting the screen like simultaneously. Surprisingly, House of the 1 to 3, if you can ever play those back in the arcade games, they're fantastic games. Like they just got really, really bad after 3. But I totally agree with you. Like the feel of having the guns and the pedals and like it's nothing compared to having like the move controls and stuff. So
absolutely. All right. Well, moving on then with what we've been playing. I'll that's right. Don't worry. We always go off on tangents like this. It's always fascinating to talk about our like gaming experiences. I'll go next with what we've been playing. And like it's funny you should say move controller actually, because that kind of like segues slightly into what I've been playing. I've been doing a lot of VR this week actually. I decided to get my PSVR out and set it up. I've been recently, just a quick sort of like story time. God of War, as of recording this, God of War's out next week. It's out on Friday. Coming this today is Saturday, the day we're recording this, and I am not looking into starting any big games because I'm waiting for God of War to come out so I can get properly sunk into that. So I'm looking for small games at the moment. So I've been looking around, and PSVR has been the place for me at the moment for like small, quick kind of like not like super quick like games or platinums, but just 5-6 hour things I'm looking at. Nothing that's going to require a lot of time because I want to be. I want to be completely free when God of War comes out on launch day. So that side. So I looked in the sale and all of that, had a little look around, and I found a really cool game. And I did actually talk a little bit about it last week on the podcast, so I'm not going to go completely in depth. I spoke about The Invisible Hours, a murder mystery game set in a mansion for PSVR. It was we discovered it had been out actually on Steam for a while as well, but I really enjoyed it. So the basic premise of it, no spoilers, is you don't play as one of the characters. You're just sort of like an observer. You're like the camera, so to speak. You can move around the mansion freely. You can control time, so you can wind time backwards, fast forward, pause it, and you're basically just like an omniscient. Can never quite get them words out.
Omnipresent.
Omnipresent, thank you. Sorry, I was getting a little bit confused there.
No.
Omnipresent sort of camera, if you will. And you arrive on the island at the same time as a sort of main character, if you will, a detective. All these people have been summoned to the island for a particular reason. They get there, and the main host, the owner of the house, has been murdered. You find him dead, and it unfolds like a murder mystery, like the film Clue or Cluedo, where it depends where you live, the name of that movie, or the game of Cluedo, of course, like the board game. Yeah, you have to figure out who did it. So you can follow people around. You sort of tag the character, and you follow a character around. There's 7 characters altogether, if you include the person who was killed as well. And you follow them around. You watch dialogue, interactions with people. The camera is completely free, or you just track up one person at a time, or you can move around the mansion and look at other people. So people will have dialogues and interactions with each other, and then they'll go off and have interactions with other people in other rooms. People are being really shady, really secretive, being really kind of like acting suspicious. So what I did is I watched one character, then I'd wind it back to the beginning of the chapter, follow another character all the way through, and it's really good. It is a really good game. I went in with pretty low expectations, but I was really quite surprised at how good it is, how well made it is in terms of the voice acting. The plot has some really good twists to it as well that you don't see coming. So I also hear that I discovered a little bit of research, and it turns out this game is actually getting an update. So you can play it without PSVR or without VR. So if you already own it as a VR, if you already own the game, it's a free update. Or after this update, you can buy the game and play it without VR, and it's a free update. So I'd say, so if you owned it now, bought it as a PSVR, as soon as the update rolls out, you can play it without it.
Okay, I have a question. Sorry. I have a question though with the VR, not VR. When you boot up a VR game, does it require you to do a setup with the VR and then you go into the menu and disable it, or how does that work?
I have no idea. Oh wait, in regards to the Invisible Hours, I don't know. All I know is that there's a patch coming. But in regards to a game that can be played in both, for example, let's say Resident Evil 7. That's a game where you can play it in both.
Yep.
I think from what I remember, because it's been quite a while since I played that game, you just turn the PSVR on at the main menu of like the console, like at the UI of the PS4, and then when you go in, the game just realizes you have it in VR, and it just shifts it into the VR version automatically. That's what I assume. That's what I assume it will be like for the Invisible Hours, and vice versa. So. At the moment, it's on sale, at least in the EU version. So, like, if you've got PSVR, I definitely recommend it. You can use Move controllers. I didn't play it with a regular controller, so I cannot confirm if you can play it with a regular controller or not. I can't confirm that. I'll have to look that up. But if you have Move controllers, you use a kind of teleporting system. You sort of like to move around the mansion. It's similar to like Doom VFR. You kind of like aim your Move controller and you get like an arc, a line appear, and you can just sort of like warp to certain areas. So it's like you're not walking, because that's what usually causes the motion sickness in VR. Like when you're kind of like your brain thinks you're moving, but your body's not, and that kind of like that feeling is what causes the nausea. So, but yeah, in terms of trophies though, very easy, very straightforward. There's some collectibles in the mansion, which are basically evidence. Sometimes characters will pull out items from their pockets that are like evidence, and you can pause time, and then you use the Move controller to take it out of the character's hand, look at it, and then like put it back in their hand. Like when you release the trigger on the Move, it just sort of flies out on the Move and then back onto the character's hand or in their pocket or wherever it came from, which I think is really cool, because you can actually take like, for example, there's like letters, for example, like a character will pull out a letter, like a document, and you can take it out of their hand and actually fully read it. Like it'll go really big and you can read it, read all the information on it, and then let go, and it'll go back into the character's hand again, which is what's really cool. All the items you can take, like pocket watches, for example, like a character will have a pocket watch. You can analyze like the engravings on the back, and it might be a clue, stuff like that.
I'm thinking right now, like you're like they're like reading the actual document, and you just swipe it off from them, and then like just not even reacting to it. I imagine so. So like they're still reading it, but you have the document in your hand, so they don't have it.
It's kind of weird. It's like a duplicate of the document comes out of the document, so they're still kind of holding it, but you're holding like kind of like a ghost duplication of it, so you've got it at the same time. But usually I pause it because it's easier to grab documents when the characters aren't moving, because like I said, you can control time, pause it whenever, and freely move around the mansion, find diaries, newspaper clippings. And they're not just collectibles, they're also evidence, and also they fill in the background information for the characters as well. So if you want to enjoy the story, it's encouraged that you get the collectibles as well. Following all the characters around like gets you trophies. You have to see everyone's different scenes throughout the entire game, which sounds like a dream, Quantic Dream kind of like chore of a trophy, like you get in like Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls, but it's not. It really isn't, because a lot of the characters overlap. So like character A and character B will talk, so that counts as a scene for both of them. So it's not as much of a chore as it sounds.
Okay, so you can just piggyback from one of them and then just follow them until you get like the scenes checked off one by one.
Yeah, basically they all cross each other's paths, so it's easy. The platinum is easy. I got it. I got it in about 2 or 3 days. I was playing it pretty casually, because like with VR, you don't want to go too hard into it, because you need breaks from it, regardless of like the type of game you're playing. It's always good to take breaks from VR because it's quite strenuous on the eyes. And yeah, good game basically. I definitely recommend it, and a pretty easy platinum. And my other VR game, and I'll just be real quick with this one because I've yammered on long enough. I picked up Rick and Morty Virtual Reality. That was on Steam over a year ago. I think it was exclusive for Oculus or Vive or one of the other VR hardware. But yeah, it came out on a PSVR this Tuesday just gone, and I grabbed it immediately. I'm a big fan of the show, and I really like the humor, and it's great. It's made by Alchemy, the people who made Job Simulator. Ooh. So it's the same kind of gameplay in regards to like you're given kind of wacky little tasks to do. This time it's in like Rick's lab/garage. So it just gives you random stuff to do. You can do like experiment, shrink stuff, combine stuff, go through different portals and visit different planets and whatnot. It's a couple of hours long if you want to complete the sort of story, if you call it that. There's other stuff to do. There's mini games. Trophy-wise, I'd say 90%, 95% of the trophies are very, very easy. They're very doable. It's like Job Simulator. But there's 2 trophies that are particularly challenging, and one in particular, there's a... I won't go into it because that is my tricky trophy for this week, so I'll save it for later. But there are a few mini games which are challenging, but the game is really good. At the moment on the EU store, it's or the UK store, it's £25, which I thought was a little bit steep. It's kind of like Job Simulator. It feels just a little steep for what you get in, but that's just my opinion and my view of the value of the game. But it is really good. It's like probably one of the better games on PSVR for sure. It works really well. Like no motion sickness or anything like that. You teleport around. The things you can interact with are brilliant. There's tons of detail and just loads and loads of little subtle references to different Rick and Morty episodes. Have a look at some footage if you haven't got PSVR or haven't got a VR, and just see what I'm talking about. It's very well made. Yeah, I do recommend it, but I'd say maybe possibly wait for a sale, because I feel it's maybe about £5 a little too much. I think I would have been more comfortable when it came out. I expected it to be £20, like a sort of 19.99 sort of area, but at 25, I thought, but I'll get it anyway. I got just a little bit, not too much, just a hair over, I think, for what you're getting. But it's still really good. Got all the voice actors in it from the show, and I mean all the voice actors of the whole family from the show. I got the platinum for it as well, and judging on PSN profiles, it looks like at least on PSN profiles that I was the first person to get the platinum for that game.
Ooh.
Which was a nice surprise. I was sure I wasn't going to be the first, but I got the platinum on the second day, the day after getting the game. So
I mean, they must have been like you, like they've been playing it on and off, because maybe motion sickness, and also not many people have VR, so those might be some stuff that might happen. So that's all contributing factors. Let me pull up the actual trophy list and see if that is it like virtual reality. Yeah, Rick and Morty, virtual reality. It has different region lists as well. So I was looking at the EU region, so I might not be the first person to actually get it across all regions, but at least on PSN profiles, I'm at the top for it. So. Yep, you're the top. And then immediately after, like, holy shit, you got it, and then someone else popped it like 7 hours later. So, congrats, actually. Thank you. When I got the trophy, PSN actually, it was still on 0.0% for the platinum when I actually synchronized all my trophies. So I think it's gone up to 0.2 now. I'm not sure. I checked it. 4.35%. Oh, that's for PSN profiles. Let me filter that to. If you filter it to PSN, it's 0.2.
Yeah, it's 0.20.
Yeah, 0.20.
So yeah, pretty rare. The one of the tricky trophy that I've got will probably be the reason why a lot of people don't have it yet, because it is hard, and I will tell you how I got it for sure. But I think I've definitely talked enough now. So I tell you what, he's been very patient, listening in very quietly. Claire, why don't you have at it and tell us what you've been up to recently?
Well, there's not much I've been playing really. Like, I've only just been playing one game for about the last few weeks, and that's been the Monster Hunter World as well. It's my first ever Monster Hunter game, so I didn't really know what to expect. But like Kai said, it's a very rich kind of world, and it's probably the best multiplayer experience I've had this generation. So it's definitely amazing. Like, it's fantastic. Put a lot of hours into it though. I'm on about 369 hours now.
That's insane. And you have the platinum for it, don't you?
Yeah, I only just got it recently. It requires a huge amount of effort, although as time goes on with all the events and stuff like that, I think that'll be narrowed down. So there's only a certain part of the game that will get really, really grindy, but you have to still put in like a lot of effort, but still take you 200 hours at least, you know what I mean? And that's if luck is on your side, you know.
So it seems to have scratched that sort of Dark Souls itch in regards to like huge boss fights and sort of high risk, high reward, right?
Yeah, well, it's basically that. If you could imagine that, like the boss fights, whereas it all encouraged co-op. There was a lot more ways that you could affect bosses with items, and if the bosses came back and like on big open plains, if you understand, because you can just drop into like an exhibition and you can fight a load of different monsters, like 5 on a map or something like that. But like there's exhibitions, there's optional quests, there's events and stuff like that. But it's only really investigations that like give you what you need from Platinum. And the only really hard thing is that the game asks you to find the smallest version and the largest version of each of the monsters in the game, basically.
Okay.
So as you're going along, there's 26 monsters in the game that you need to get those crowns, like a mini gold crown and a large gold crown. And you need to basically get them all. Now, there's events on at the moment that cover like I'd say 19 of the 26. So within a few hours grinding, you could get all the crowns very, very easily, and you could just drop in and kill the monsters and drop out. You don't have to do anything or anything like that. But for the Elder Dragons, there's about 6 of them. They're like the toughest monsters in the game. They're not in events, so you basically have to go in and like what we were doing, sizing them up, if you understand. So, but like it took us like 8 or 9 hours. We killed them 40-50 times before we actually got our 1 crown. Like, you know what I mean? It was pretty desperate for me and Shingo. We put hundreds of hours into it. But we got very, very good at it, actually. We got really good at it. And I started making YouTube videos, so then they've actually been doing quite well as well. So really kind of happy about that, because you'd start the investigation. Well, you'd have to get an investigation of a certain quality, and then you only have a certain amount of times you can use that investigation before that runs out. So instead of losing the high quality investigations, you need to back up your save. So we were like running in, starting an investigation, running in, sizing up the monster. Like we'd go beside the ball joint in their leg, or we'd see a certain scale at a certain thing, and we'd use other people's photos and screenshots, videos as measurements, and we go in there. And if our head didn't reach a certain point, or he wasn't a certain size relative to the environment in the background, when we stood still at a certain place, we just back out, quit, and then we reload it then, and we keep on doing that again. And then once we got like what we thought was within the range of the smallest crown, we'd kill it, you know what I mean? If you're playing by yourself, it'd be very hard, because you'd have to fire the SOS and you just call in random people, and like random people can either be extremely amazing Japanese people who have played the game all their lives and who are incredible Monster Hunter veterans, or it's just going to be some noobs who like try to we had someone who tried to shock trap an Elder Dragon, and you can't do that. So like, you know, you do get some noobs sometimes when you're crown hunting. But like luckily I had a team of people, like 2 other people that I could count on, you know, to go in there and get it done. So, but you have to kill it, and then at the very end you might not get the crown, and that happened so many different times. And then eventually it gives you a reading of the monster at the very end. So his size would be like 2,126 feet. And then that'll be your smallest version then. And then unless you find a smaller version of it, it won't give you an updated reading of it. So that's why we had to learn by our own memory the actual physical size of them, you know what I mean? Because we'd waste, like, it's even calling in the troops, it'll take 20-30 minutes to be an Elder Dragon. You know what I mean? That's if you have the best gear and you're all set up, you know what I mean? Like, still take that amount of time. So to cut down on a huge amount of wasting time, that's what we basically did. Like, we'd only kill the ones that we thought. But it took ages. Like, it took hundreds of hours to do that, you know what I mean? But
it's pretty,
to be honest,
you got that sort of measuring system down a little bit. That certainly helped you out. I mean, rather than just sort of like aimlessly.
It's what you need to do. It's what you need to do. Like I said, you could do it for anyone who got the platinum in the very early stages. They did that for all the monsters, and credit to them. That would have been incredibly frustrating. You know what I mean? But for me, they have events on where basically they'll have an event on for like a week or something like that. Like I will say, like he'll know. Like when you go into the event, you're on the entire map, and then there's 5 monsters, and you have to beat all 5 monsters in 50 minutes, and you only have like 3 deaths between 4 people. But the monsters are easy once you're a high level character. You just go in there and bang them out, you know what I mean? You get all done. You get all 5 done in 20 minutes. Or like if you're only after a certain monster, you could just jump in there and snipe them. But the events give a huge increase in the crown percentage that you can actually get, you know what I mean? You don't even need to snipe them. You just run in there, have a good time with your mates, kill all of them. Then once you have 1 or 2 remaining, yeah, you go in and snipe them then, you know what I mean? But for the Elder Dragons, that's an incredibly frustrating thing to go through. Like, it takes hours and hours and hours. So if anyone who is doing the events right now and mopping up crowns very, very easily, if you haven't done the Elder Dragons or set foot into that, then that's the real grind of the game. You know what I mean? But they might make it easier in the future because some I'll discuss it kind of in the news releases as well, kind of what it means and all that as well. But that's how I did it. It's the only thing I've been playing in the last 6 weeks. Like I said, 360 hours. But it's kind of like it reminded me of first playing Dark Souls and stuff like that. It was kind of like all the Dark Souls games put together, if you understand. Like the amount of effort it took to learn it. But like it's exactly like Souls. You're thrown into the deep end, and they don't really explain like all the systems. There's so many different menu systems that it all just becomes a blank. You know what I mean? Like Kai said earlier, the real way you learn is by joining an SOS and then seeing how other people use their weapons, and like because there's 14 weapons in the game, and then you make a different weapon according to the monster. So like if you really like an Elder Dragon set who's like lightning based, then you can craft the armor and the weapons of the great swords and all that from him. So you need to go in and kill him loads of different times and carve off his body, get all the materials, and then come back and then make his armor set in his version. And then usually it's like it'll give better thunder resistance for when you're fighting the higher versions of that kind of monster and stuff like that. So it's incredibly detailed, and it's a fantastic game. Like I'm still hooked on it because I still got the platinum, but my teammates who I've been playing with don't have the platinum yet. So I'm still in there, and if they were here, they would tell you as well. I became very, very good at being able to size them up. I managed to get all of them. Even I managed to get Shingo like a small Nergigante, even though I already, and then a large Kushala, and then a few other others. You know what I mean? I knew when I seen him, you know, and I had a look that I was just able to get him. You know what I mean?
Looks like I'm going to be messaging you over next week or so. Like, hey, click.
Yeah. Well, the best thing that I did was I actually made the videos. You know what I mean? And I have made videos where I actually discuss. So I tell you, you can get on the ghillie mantle for Nergigante so he doesn't see you. You go stand in the exact same place, and he always, because he doesn't see you, he'll walk in a certain pattern from like up and down, and then he'll cross over a pillar. And if he fully crosses over that pillar, then you'll know he'll be within the gold crown range, and then you have to kill that version of him every single time. And then sometimes you just won't get the crown, you know what I mean? And other times you will. And then, but once you get it once, then just move on to the next monster, you know what I mean? But it's kind of, it would depend on when you play the game. Like if you played right now, you wouldn't be able to get any crowns because you'd need to like put in 100 hours before you'd be able to start the events to get the crowns here right now, you know what I mean? And these events are going to close on the 19th. So like after that, you'd kind of have to just wait till the next event, the summer events or something like that. Like you'd have to keep an eye on the actual quest schedule for when these events are coming, you know what I mean? But I just kind of made use of the events in the last few weeks, and then some like hundreds of hours of sniping the Elder Dragons, and yeah, I got the platinum. I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, that's incredible, to be honest, putting so much time. But you're not exactly a stranger to like huge games anyway. I mean, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, the Witcher series.
Well, me and Shingo came to the self-realization of this, but I realized it a long time ago because I'm a long-time trophy hunter. Like I'm probably coming up on nearly 10 years of maybe trophy hunting now. But like I love the grind. You know what I mean? I love that filthy grind. I really do. You know, people complain about it. I SOS'd with people in Monster Hunter, and they complained about the grind, but at the end of it, like I was just like, you love it. Like that's why you stick. That's why you stick on the game. That's why you come back. That's why you want to get that crown, even after 8 hours of sniping this Teostra like over and over again, and being so sure, like watching our videos, watching the screenshots of other trophy hunters and saying she lines up exactly and we're not getting the crown, you know what I mean? It's frustrating, but then eventually when it does happen, it feels like you get a platinum the second you get one. Honestly, that's the way it was.
It's good. You know, if you're enjoying it and that's what you do, the thrill of the chase would be a good saying.
Yeah, like I said, I know what I prefer, you know what I mean? I was 100 times more happier spending hours and hours spending just getting that one trophy done and that one platinum done than it would have been grinding loads of other different games, you know, smaller games or something like that. So for me, I know it was a lot more satisfying for me to be able to say that I got it, you know. And I'm still in there. I'd love to help Kai. I want to help Nomad. I want to help anyone, you know. I still need a few video references, you know. So
I do think, but just to finish up on the Monster Hunter aspect here, if people are really afraid of playing Monster Hunter, like just to start off, don't, because the community is really helpful. Like I've jumped into like certain missions, I've didn't have a clue what I was doing, but everyone was so helpful, like telling me like where I need to be, what type of the best setup to do, and everyone's really welcoming to like just jump into your events or investigations. Like
we have a very active section of our Discord as well, even like so. Like even if you were to put in something in there, like you'll get a lot of people saying. So certainly me as well, because if you were and Shingo as well, and some other people who have the Elder Dragons done, we can give you those reference points if you're needing it for when you're sniping and stuff like that, or even any individual stuff like getting the affinity booster, Kai, stuff like that,
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, even though I'm like 150 hours into the game, I barely have everything.
I'm still learning.
It's all stuff that we all need. So the game is massive. Like people just think it's massive. Literally the same monster you kill over and over again, but that's part of the game. You're doing that because you're earning
incredibly in depth. Like if you love like crafting armor sets and crafting weapons from like the monsters that you killed, and that's the game for you essentially. High quality, different ranges, and then customize with these decorations and stuff like that. And then it's just so awesome. Like it's amazing, and the performance is fantastic. I'm playing on the PS4 Pro on a 4K, and I can set it to the like performance mode, and it's pretty much 60 frames all the time. And it looks beautiful. Like it's amazing.
I'll make a confession. Monster Hunter World was the reason why I came back to PlayStation 4. I bought a PS Pro just for Monster Hunter, and then I've been stuck with it since. So,
that's quite an investment.
To be honest with you, it's probably been the best investment in a game in a long, long time for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the price of the game you can get is fantastic. Like if you pay £40 or $60, you're gonna get that much money out of it.
Kind of I know that we kind of want to close up and we want to get to the news, but I wanted to say that's the reason why I say that's why I'm happy enough paying full price for games, because I paid €70 for that, but got 369 hours and counting like quality out of that. So if you do the math on that, like compared to what people spend on a cinema or something like that, or just on a movie or something like that, it works out way better quality for value for the time and effort that I got out of that, what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the way I explain it to people,
Just before we move on, just a comment in the chat section from White Meowth. They say, fairly new player, and I can agree with that. Found random people give me advice on how to capture monsters or even help me learn basics within the game, just from random groups. No one calling me a noob or being rude. It's so refreshing. It's nice to find good communities within gaming, within games and gaming communities at large as well. It's people, instead of people being aggressive and sort of not open or welcoming, it's detrimental to just gaming in general. But when people are open arms and invite people in, it's like with just really quickly, like with Bloodborne, when it was on PS Plus last month, and we had the Bloodborne, or we have the Bloodborne channel here on our Discord. Everyone was so nice and helpful, and it helped a lot of people, including myself, and it's always nice, not to be sort of like
actually if there's any Japanese Monster Hunter players listening to this right now, I love you.
If they can understand what you just said, then yeah, okay.
You're amazing, sweetie. Honestly, those guys are they're just amazing, because obviously
they're literally white knights.
They're so good, so good.
You know why I think like the random people say like having not being rude or calling people noobs is that the game is basically more cooperative. All the points to like the game is basically set up so that you have to be with party members and hunting together, so that you're basically have to be forced to do this.
Yeah, there's no PvP or anything like that, there's nothing like that, so.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. It's all co-op,
it's all co-op, but you can, if you wanted to, you can play the game single player. Like the series is always
offline.
The series at heart is always being play with friends, like co-op, because that's how it is. But I think you can play the game single player if you'd like to, but I feel like you're just missing out on such a massive opportunity to like play the game properly.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Okay, I think it's time to the news now. So
okay.
it's funny. I say, oh, we've spoken a lot about Monster Hunter, but I tell you what, our news section's coming up, and we've actually got a little bit more on it. So I'll hand over to Vic, and you can lead the way for the news.
So thank you, Daz. So the news this week. So anyone who's interested with Monster Hunter World and has missed the actual opening with the Mega Man armor set for your Palico, you can actually go back on the new Spring Blossom Festival that brings back this magnificent armor for your Calico, which is basically your cat companion. Is that correct?
Palico.
Yeah, Palico.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I got the Mega Man armor last night. It's amazing. And just so people are aware, is actually that event that gets the Mega Man armor, it gives you a guaranteed Odogaron small crown and large gold crown as well. So you can see why this event ties in. So you can literally get that monster done in the very first event, you know what I mean? But once that event disappears on the 19th, you'd have to go back to sniping in the old way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly how you get the Mega Man thing. It's amazing. It actually looks amazing.
Yeah, it does look really fancy. Just to put that, the Mega Man quest is new for the European and US. It actually came out I'm pretty sure it's brand new for us, but in Japan it came out early over there. So, I think that was the same with the Ryu costume as well from Street Fighter. It was actually people over there had it early as well.
They're doing fantastic other games
Yeah.
like Alloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. You can get her complete armor where you basically, it's not like wearing her armor, you become her in the game, her face, her everything. You look exactly like her in the game. And they're going to do other ones as well, which I'm sure is in the
I think this week is Dante. You can get Dante's coat from Devil May Cry. Yeah,
everything from Capcom, like, so I'm really excited. Like, it's an amazing game. So much content coming to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I think that's about it with the Monster Hunter talk.
Yeah.
So this has been...
Unfortunately.
We kept it short.
Okay. At least it's not like last week we were talking about Spider-Man nonstop. So let's move on to another topic. So, anyways, our next topic is regarding God of War. We got reviews, and it's currently the 8th biggest PlayStation IP to reach 90% on Metacritic. I'm so happy this game got like this high on the accolades, mostly 10s across the board, and I'm fairly optimistic when it comes out next week. So what do you guys think about this?
Well, me and I know, I'm not too sure about you and Kai Vec, but I know me and Daz are extreme God of War fans, because we actually do have all the platinums. Never does. Me and you.
Yes, that's indeed.
He has all the platinums, and I have all the platinums as well. So I know I'm not alone on this podcast by saying that I'm incredibly excited by this new direction of the game. What I wanted to say was I've never seen a game reaction like this from a single player game since The Last of Us, which makes me incredibly excited. But like, for me, I haven't watched many of it, but honestly, I've just kind of avoided it, because once I seen it and announced at E3, I was like, all right, that's grand. It's just day one, let me know the price, you know what I mean? And it's
we've
kind of
sort of spoken about that in the past, haven't we? Like big games like Uncharted, for example, or indeed like God of War. Like when you know, like speaking for me personally, and just sort of backing up what you said there, Claire, when you know you're going to buy a game, I kind of like avoid a lot of trailers and a lot of footage and whatnot, because I don't want any of it to be spoiled. And I don't just mean like story, I just mean like that first look at an environment, that first time you walk into like a big area. Like, I don't want to see it, I want to see it for myself, you know. So like when they announced Uncharted 4, when they announced like the Lost Legacy, the Uncharted Lost Legacy, I'd barely watched anything on that, because I'm like, well, I'm sold. I don't want to see anything on it, because I'm definitely buying that straight away. And the same goes for God of War. Like, and just touching on that sort of subject anyway, I don't really care much for reviews. Interested in a game, I'll buy a game. Reviews don't really influence me like very much, very little, if I'm honest. The only time a review will really influence me is like, will I buy it at full price on day one? Very rarely, but you know, generally speaking. Or will I just wait a little bit and maybe wait for a price drop? That's basically the only real influence. It's never like cut and dry. It's like, I will not buy it, I will definitely buy it. But anyway, I digress. it's cool. It's awesome that it's getting all these reviews. Absolutely, and I'm happy for it as well. It's great. It's fantastic. It's not changed it as my opinion on it anyway.
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of reinvented itself and it's a bold new future for God of War. But for me, like, I'm really, really excited because, like I said, it reminded me a lot of The Last of Us, kind of the emotional, kind of parental kind of feeling to it. But like for me and Daz, like we played every God of War game, and I can tell you from my own knowledge of playing those games, there's very few moments where Kratos' main emotion isn't vengeance. You know what I mean? Like throughout the entire thing, they make a point that this is a mad bastard. You know what I mean? He is mad and he wants to kill. And there's very few fleeting moments where it brings him back to his family and it brings back to other moments where he like loses that kind of vengeance. But the entire series is about him wanting to kill those. You know what I mean? And this game looks the complete opposite. This game looks like he has feelings. He's developed into a complex character, a person, and it looks like it's going to deliver that kind of close-knit cinematic experience, that the same kind of feelings that you developed between Joel and Ellie, I think, honestly. So
from this sort of like
one dynamic character to
a character.
Like
he's just like he's just a two-dimensional character of just rage. And even when he had those quieter moments, like those really rare quieter moments in the previous games, it sort of seemed a little bit like kind of almost out of character. Like in God of War 3, like they focus on it in God of War 3, like his rage has blinded him. And that's all he is. He's just rage, and then
it kills innocence because he wants to get her like the women along the way, and to open up doors and stuff like that. He just doesn't care. Like he's got an end goal, which is to kill Zeus, and anything that stops him along that way is gone. And that's the kind of the point of the series, like complete rage, complete vengeance. You know what I mean? To see it.
Games of rage, it has gotten old now. I mean, I'm sure there will be moments in this game as well, but it looks like he's trying to be a better person, but he's actually internally struggling with trying to control his anger, because in like the initial trailer, it looks like he does get quite frustrated with his son, with Atreus, but it looks like he's trying to be a better person, and that's more interesting because we know what he used to be like.
I can't wait. It's soon. It's close.
I know it really makes me smile to think like Kratos has gone from someone who is just like this. I don't know. He's just like, he's not even like a character, so to speak. He's just like just like one emotion. Like I said, kind of two-dimensional. And at the time, we loved that. That was awesome. I was, playing God of War 3, and he's like ripping people's heads off and all that. And you were cheering along with that because that was just the start of this game. But now it's more sort of somber.
Well, that's it.
Thing.
I'm looking at like what Nomad Dragon basically said now in the chat, and I agree with it. You were saying that he's so happy that they changed the mythology and the kind of background setting of it and all that. And that's what I agree, and that's what I think made Ascension so poor as well. Because I mean, how can you top the trilogy? Like where do you go from like killing Zeus and all the gods of Olympus to the very next game where you go do a prequel where you're killing some other not as big guys? Like, it's a complete step down. There's no way you could have done a God of War game. They should have just skipped Ascension and just not did it and then just rebooted it the way they have done. But I'm glad it all worked out here now. But like I said, I didn't see the point. Like, Ascension is definitely the weakest in the entire. I prefer the PSP ones, to be honest.
I think I made that comparison at some point during this week about on Twitter about actually Ascension is pretty bland compared to like 3 set the bar, and
you just can't follow up from beating the gods of Olympus,
the god of gods, the king of the gods. And
that's what the entire trilogy was about from the very start to the very end.
I have a confession, guys. I'm so sorry. I've never played God of War.
Well, this is you can.
No, that's fine.
Mute him until he has all of that.
I've never played any. I own.
So good, though.
A few of them, like I on my PS3 and stuff, and I've got like the.
Is the only word that you could describe the game's epic.
So I was primarily just a little bit of backstory. I was primarily, and I had a PS2 back in the day and stuff. Yeah, cool, whatever. But primarily, I was an Xbox type of guy. Most of my friends, me, played Atari. But like most of my friends, like Nintendo and Xbox for me was like during that generation was like I was playing a lot more of them. So like I was playing Halo with my friends, like Halo 2, Halo 3, you know, Street Fighter on there and stuff like that. But anyway, I was a huge achievement hunter on 360. That's like I was not on the PS3 basically, so I missed out on some, you know, games like Uncharted and stuff. So I played games on the Xbox 360. So the closest thing for me was the Devil May Cry series. So I'm a huge fan of Devil May Cry. Like I've had my hair cut like DMC5, which a lot of people don't like. Like that for me, I like that Dante, like the short hair, kind of like doesn't give a flying fuck about you know society and that type of stuff. Like that for me, like I like that game a lot. I've completed that game like maybe 25 times over 360 PC. Everything as well. Still haven't platinumed it or anything, but I'm gonna get there one day. But I play games like Azura's Wrath. That's the closest thing to God of War I've played. So I've heard loads of good things about God of War, but the story and stuff. So this for me, the new God of War coming out next week. Friday, well, technically next week for us right now. It's brand new for me. So I'm gonna go into this game fresh. So I've seen some trailers. I've seen Twitter. I've seen the reviews and stuff. I've seen the first like 5 minutes of the game and stuff. For me, so I am excited for it. I think you guys are obviously very excited for it, but for me, it's exciting for me because it's very fresh. Because I'm so used to the fast pace of Devil May Cry and like that kind of witty attitude. This is more, for me, it kind of looks like a very more emotional game. You know, because it looks like a very Last of Us-esque where it's two characters you care about. And sorry, another thing, I've not completed The Last of Us either. Calm down, don't hurt me in the comments, don't
Hey, if it helps, I haven't played Last of Us either. So
okay. Alright. Let's not go down.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Let's just finish this one.
Sorry.
We're all excited.
Yeah, God of War looks fantastic. I agree with everyone what they're saying about the comments and stuff, and I think it's going to be a game that everyone's going to be talking about this year a lot. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. What's next, Vic? Let's try and push through these. We've gone a little bit off rails here.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
That's
about
fine.
It.
We're all very excited about it. It's easy to like.
Every time I start talking, I just go into a massive tangent. I'm really sorry.
Don't worry.
All right. What's next, Vic?
Okay, so next up we have Bethesda teasing Doom 2. Now, apparently, the hit successor of Doom 2016 basically broke charts with Bethesda and with the rebooting of old licenses like Wolfenstein and Doom. And now we're going to apparently see Doom 2 on the big stage on E3. So we're not sure about this because they're teasing it. So apparently we might actually see it.
I'm not surprised by this. Doom did really well. Doom 2016 was absolutely awesome. I absolutely loved it. I bought it twice. I played it on PS4 and I bought it for Nintendo Switch as well because that game is just so satisfying and the action is so fluid and it's just ultra violent and just crazy and the soundtrack. Like, we'll not go off on another tangent about this.
Soundtrack's fantastic. Yeah, it's from a guy called Mick Gordon. He's done the Killer Instinct soundtrack for the Xbox. He's done some of the Need for Speed games. He's done Wolfenstein. Like, his stuff is just incredible.
Yeah, it's really sort of like quite visceral sounding, and he even actually just a quick little fact with the Doom 2016 soundtrack, he actually sampled actual chainsaw sounds into the music as well to match the chainsaw that's in the game. You know, like kind of like or it's a bit the traditional chainsaw that's been from the previous games as well. So it's got that kind of really grimy, machiney kind of bite to it. But anyway, no surprise that we'll be getting a Doom 2, and I'll absolutely buy it because that Doom 2016 was awesome, absolutely awesome.
Have you? Does it come with it came with a VR update, didn't it? Did you have to buy the game again to play it in VR on PS4?
It was, we covered this in a good.
Oh, sorry.
It's a separate game. It's a completely separate.
Okay.
It's not an update. It's called Doom VFR, and it's just like it's basically like a sample of Doom. It takes a lot of the environments, and it's just in virtual reality. It's good. I got it for really cheap on Amazon, and it's fine. It's just basically like it's almost like a VR tour of Doom. Basically, it's sort of toned down in terms of like you can play on really hard mode, but you can just breeze through it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a platinum though, which really was annoying, to be honest. Like, which is a thing with some VR games, they don't have platinums. But it could have had one. But Claire, you played Doom, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, it's exactly my type of game.
So you'll definitely be picking up a sequel for sure.
For sure.
It's gonna be
Absolutely.
confusing when it comes to Doom 3.
I'm sure they'll rename it with a subtitle or something like they did with Wolfenstein. Like they just called it Wolfenstein, you know, like the new Colossus. Like they didn't call it Wolfenstein 2.
Yeah.
You know, confusing it with the old games. All right, well, there's not really much more to say about that. It's just a tease anyway, but I'd definitely buy it, and I'm confident it's real anyway whenever they do decide to reveal it. So, what's next?
Okay, so Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon: The Wildlands had a new update, and it included a return with Sam Fisher, but it had like a interesting like reference to an old franchise. So the scene plays out like Sam entering the room, and he asks like they don't make me anymore, and they said like a bandana wearing soldier that apparently was retired, and he says like, oh, that's a shame. I'm like the only one.
He's not around anymore.
Yeah,
it's just basically a nod to say that, you know, Metal Gear's sort of kind of over now. It's kind of done, you know, in regards to like how the series used to be, and it's unsure. We don't know what it's going to be like going forward with how Konami's like, you know, with Metal Gear Survive sort of not really being received very well, it not really being a traditional Metal Gear, if only Metal Gear in name, really.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a nice nod because it used to be. I never played any of the Splinter Cell games, so I'm not really that.
Me neither.
Educated on them, but
I'll probably be the best for this and talks about that. I've played every single one on the original Xbox, and I've played one of them on the 360. Fantastic series. Like the direction changed a lot after when I went to 360, but it's if you have a chance to play the original ones, I think I'm pretty sure they did a like a HD. For the PS3.
Yep, I have that copy. It's on my list to play. So
great series. Like, it's quite very very missed. I think it would do very well if it came back to PlayStation or Xbox or today's generation.
Yeah. But
right.
that's
it was a cool little nod towards Metal Gear. That's for sure. I did see a little clip of it, but not really much else to say about that other than that was nice. Nice.
So next up we got another announcement for a PS3 server shutdown, and it's again from another United Front Games. Mod Nation Racers is going to have their servers shut down relatively soon. They announced I think it was like June 20th, which is a few weeks before Little Big Planet 2, Little Big Planet Karting goes down. So that's going to be a real shame. People are now trying to get the Hot Lap trophy. That's going to be super hard to get because it's basically like Killzone's 10% leaderboard, but with racing, and it's daily, so it's much easier to get. But if you're going for
Mod Nation Racers, sorry, just to interject real quickly, it kind of reminds me. It's just in the same boat as a Little Big Planet Karting. It was kind of like Mod Nation Racers had a bigger kind of like draw to it in regards to like you can create your own tracks and all of that, and then when it kind of flopped because no one really sort of cared. It wasn't like relatable. They tried it with Little Big Planet and thought, it's already a game where you create your own stuff. So they basically sort of took the skeleton of Mod Nation Racers and put it into the Little Big Planet, but both of them ended up in the same kind of boat anyway. Like no one really cared. And
then they made like Sleeping Dogs, and then they got bankrupt, so they shut down. But SCE kept the actual licensing for Sleeping Dogs and then ported it to PS4, and that's how the story goes. So United Front Games, I salute you. This is like the last of the legacy, so I'm just gonna do karting at the moment. Maybe sometime for Mod Nation Racers, but it's fairly difficult, and it's gonna be harder once people get into like hacking the actual Hot Lap trophies, and that becomes like impossible to get. So be on the lookout for that trophy. If you have the game already, do it, but if you don't bother going for it. But if you already have it on the list, go for it. But that's about it.
All right.
Next up on the list is that apparently BioShock is coming back in some shape or form. Apparently,
this was yesterday. I believe it came out. this was more of like a little kind of a little drop of information, really. Games journalist
investigated.
Games journalist investigated. It was Jason Schreier. He wrote a piece about. He went to a 2K game studio, the guys who did Mafia 3 recently, and he was just investigating them and talking to them about the development of Mafia 3 and how they're going to try and go forward. But he actually found out that they're in a nearby studio. They're actually working on a new BioShock, and he just kind of dropped it like out of nowhere. Like, he was talking mainly about the developers of Mafia, and was like, oh, and there's also a new BioShock game being made. Just dropped it out of nowhere, and awesome. It's about time, It is about time. We need a new BioShock game.
Do you reckon he'll get in trouble for that?
No, why would he? He doesn't work for them.
Yeah, I know.
And
okay.
he's got.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, fair enough.
He's a very well-respected journalist in video games. He's always revealing big stories and whatnot. So
I don't think I really would want to know if BioShock was coming out again. I feel like that's a kind of a big spoiler, really.
Well, but he said it's in development. It could be years away.
Yeah, that's true.
I would bet like maybe a 2020 or 2021 like release, like probably more so in the future, like an announcement or something. But
we literally do not know anything. He just said it's in development. It could be pre-development.
It might not be BioShock.
That's true. They also mentioned some.
That's what I mean.
That's what
it could be something else.
In the listing itself, it says like the article itself says like project being like a fourth mafia set in Las Vegas, a spy game set in the 80s in Berlin, and another action-filled game that was abandoned apparently. But I would love like another IP, new IP called like with like spy games on Berlin. That would be awesome.
Wow. There was a game on the Xbox 360 and PS3 that was set in the 80s, I think it was, and it was. That's the one.
I know. I played that game, and
that'd be a fan. I don't think it was done by 2K, but that'd be a fantastic return for that series if they ever bring it back.
But that was pandemic and from
yeah.
So
I know. I didn't know who it was made by, but it just reminded me when you said Las Vegas in the 80s.
Well, anyway, not enough time has passed between the last BioShock for sure. I mean, it's been practically almost a whole generation since the last BioShock game. We've had if you don't include, of course, the ports and remasters, which you shouldn't really, but an actual one built for this generation hasn't come yet. So yeah, I'm well and truly hungry for BioShock. I just I don't know. I mean, I'd be okay if they did another Rapture, but I don't know. They could literally go anywhere. I don't feel they need to go back to Columbia. If they did something else in Rapture, fair enough, but I feel they've already done 2 games of that now. So, again, this is just sort of like a tiny bit of information, we're looking at it. Yeah, we're looking at it into way too much. We don't need to. It's just like, hey, look, this might happen. Yeah. Yep. We could be literally years away. It might not even be on this generation. We don't know yet. So with that, let's move on to the next story.
The final story we have today is basically Shenmue and 1 and 2 are coming in 2018. That was announced yesterday as of this recording, and I got hyped. Basically, you can play the original PS1 and it was like Dreamcast and Xbox titles of Shenmue 1 and 2.
Well, I've never played them games and I don't know much about them games, so I really can't comment, and I'm not really that interested, so that's me.
I'm super hyped about this. Well, we kind of knew Shenmue 3 was in development because of the patrons, the Kickstarter fundraiser, which got kickstarted in like 2-3 hours or something after the announcement or something stupid like that. I kind of knew that they were going to re-release Shenmue 1 and 2. Like, I had that inkling. Like, for people who've never played Shenmue, it's very hard to describe it, but it's fantastic. Like, if you like Yazuka and you like a good story game with funny little quirky like mini games, like Yazuka basically. Series, but you don't want the lore, like loads of backstory and stuff like that. You can pick up Shenmue 1 and 2 and just really enjoy it. It's a legacy game, I call it. Like it wasn't. Obviously, the Dreamcast was a fantastic console in my eyes because I had one and I thought it was great. But I just don't think it had enough attention that it did. It was like it had
not played those Yakuza games. They're really popular as well, but I've not played them either. But I can understand.
I would highly recommend it to pick up the Shenmue 1 and 2 because I feel like it's going to be a game. It's going to be a game series you might want to be interested in, especially with Shenmue 3 coming out.
Yeah, and this is basically like an entry point for anyone who wants to play or is hyped for Shenmue 3 or wants a recap. Like, this is like the perfect time.
One other thing as well, if you do want to get a copy of Shenmue 1 or 2, it's very, very expensive. Like, a copy of Shenmue 1 on disc for Dreamcast, you're looking at about, in UK pound, at least 60 to 80 pound in a good condition. If you're looking for a mint condition, you're looking at like 120 to 150 pound. If you want to get Shenmue, if you want like a Shenmue 2, Shenmue 2 is even harder to get hold of. Like it was on the end cycle of the Dreamcast, so it's very hard. I'm pretty sure it was on the Dreamcast.
It reminds
Yeah, it was.
It reminds me of Okami when it got the HD re-release. Like, the prices of the actual like original titles dropped like insane because people were looking into like the PS3 and PS4 releases of the actual HD. So they basically reduced every single game to like their original prices or like a stable price point. So I can already see that coming for Shenmue 1 and 2. So.
Well, anyway, the sort of remasters, re-releases, or whatever you want to call them, of Shenmue 1 and 2 seem like a logical next step anyway from the announcement at Kickstarter. I thought they'd come sooner, but here they are now anyway. So that brings us to the end of the news section, doesn't it?
Correct. Yep.
Took us long enough. Sorry.
It was a long one, but we got through it. So let's move on to our Tricky Trophy section now, shall we? So Tricky Trophies is the segment where we look back through our trophy collections at some of the most challenging, rage-inducing gameplay, or just plain boredom and grinding we've had to endure for a single trophy. I tell you what, Claire, why don't you tell us what your Tricky Trophy is?
Yeah, well, I kind of explained it before, but I just wanted to choose that Monster Hunter one, obviously, like I said, with the sizing up, getting the large gold crown for all the monsters is very, very tough, unless you take advantage of the event at the moment, or hours of sizing up, running in and sizing up and backing up your save with the investigation. It definitely takes a lot of time, but it's the trickiest trophy I've gotten in a while, so I spoke enough about it earlier, so you should be kind of know the kind of ins and outs of it, but for me, that's definitely what I wanted to choose. The second I earned it, I knew I would choose it as a tricky trophy as well.
Awesome. Okay, fair enough. You went into enough detail on it earlier. Kai, what's your tricky trophy for this segment?
I don't really have one, but I'll give you one that was like I will try it sometime in my life. Street Fighter 5 has got a trophy called Back from Hell. It's basically you have to complete survival mode on Hell difficulty. So survival mode pretty much playing a certain amount of matches. So easy is like 10 matches, normal's 30, hard is 50, and Hell is 100. So basically you have to do 1 to 100 with one single life bar and on the hardest difficulty. And Street Fighter 5 is a hard game. The trophies and the platinum is very hard to get, and some of the challenges are very, very hard as well. The online scene is, unless you're very, very good, going to be very hard to get in a lot of those trophies. But for me, that would be a very tricky trophy. And if you do have it, it's got a 1.63 ultra rare rating on PlayStation. I think the platinum is something stupid, like it's I think it's 0.2 or something, or 0.1.
Man.
It's a 10 out of 10 on the PlayStation. Trophies.
I imagine.
But yeah, there's no way I'm gonna get it, but that would be my tricky trophy.
All right. Okay, your hypothetical tricky trophy.
Yeah. If I had it though, if I had that, I'd literally be a god. But no, it's not mine. So yeah.
All right. Disclaimer: he doesn't have it. This is a hypothetical one.
I could hack it, but no.
Oh, no.
I'm joking. I'm
I know. Relax. Vic, what's your tricky trophy?
My tricky trophy is from Little Big Planet Karting, so I want to talk about this a bit more. So here it is. My tricky trophy is The Adventure Continues, which is basically play 100 community levels. And of course, it doesn't sound so bad. And then you look at the rarity, and it's just like 3.54, and you're like, okay, what's wrong with this? So I'll explain what's wrong. So the game works like this. When you're alone, playing through the online, it asks you an option when you go into the level. There's play online or play on your own. When you play online, you have to wait until someone pops in to go and play online with that person. But if you go and pick play on your own, you play against the bots or AI that it manually spawns, and you can actually play through against that, and it's so easy. The problem with this trophy is that it's not the amount, but rather how much or frequently it registers as a separate track each, because when you pick the choosing option between online and on your own, always pick on your own, because when you play online, it doesn't sync that with the servers, and therefore it doesn't count for your overall trophy progress. So the only way to actually go against this trophy in particular, you have to play 100 levels on your own, and you can easily go play instantly, or write in instantly or 1 second quick like tracks and beat them all in like an hour and a half. But the problem is that you have to play different ones. So at first, that it's like 10 at a time, like they're right in front, so I just pop. But then you're just like scrolling through the list, and you're still waiting for more to come, and you cannot filter those, so you have to manually look into those. Because another thing about the trophy is that you can queue like races and tracks via the website, but the website is bugged, so anyone that you pick from the queued does not count. So if you play like 150 tracks on the queue, it doesn't count any of them. So be wary, you have to manually select each track one at a time, otherwise it doesn't count.
So the reason this trophy is tricky is because it's buggy, basically.
Yeah, because it's buggy, and the other thing is that when you beat the track, it boots you off back to the pod, so you have to go back inside the community tab and look it up again, and then scroll down the list and then pick another one, and then go back and do it, then have to go back and repeat, and it's like that 100 times. And when you're going for the other trophies like the dive in one, those don't count, so those ones that you picked don't count for your 100 community levels played, so you have to play 100 community levels on your own without diving in. So it's just bonkers, like trying to go for it, but in the end,
you always seem to come whenever we do tricky trophies. You always seem to describe like the worst trophies that you seem to just punish yourself with. They're always buggy or glitchy.
Yeah, I will be avoiding that game regardless.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll move on. Let's move on, and I'll give you mine, and then we'll round it out. I think we've gone on long enough for this episode. Okay, just going back to what I was talking about earlier with Rick and Morty VR, virtual reality. I said a tricky trophy is from that, and it is. This is probably the hardest trophy in the game, and I tried doing it legit, but I managed to find a way to cheese it a little bit. You see, this trophy in particular is called Bureaucratic Nightmare. Kill 100 Gromflamites in a single session of the shootout. Now, there's a shootout kind of mini game in Rick and Morty VR. You're on a planet, and the sort of like a Space Federation sort of bug soldiers that you see from the episodes, they fly up and they try and shoot you and kill you, basically. And your hands turn into cannons. They look kind of like Samus arm cannons from Metroid, and you just have to shoot them, and your cannons will overheat if you shoot for too long, so there's that. One hit will kill you, and you have to kill 100 of them. and they just keep coming and coming, and they come from about like sort of like a 90 to 100 degree angle. They're not all around you. They're just a sort of like we're kind of in your cone of vision, so to speak. And it's really hard. Like I tried it legit for about 2 hours, and I just kept getting killed. I tried all different things. I tried putting, you can wear hats and helmets and stuff in the game. I tried to see if that would make any difference. So you put them on, because the enemy's blasters, the lasers that they fire, you could deflect them with the cannons. If you kind of hold them up to your face, they kind of ping off of it. So I tried holding it up with one arm and shooting with the other. I still got hit, and I was just losing my temper with it. And eventually I found a way around it, actually, which I definitely recommend anyone who plays that game, who is listening, to do it this way, because it's the easiest way without losing your shit, basically. In the level, it's on a planet. It's all around you because it's VR, but right next to you is like a little podium that says your highest score. It's like a little scoreboard, but it's about waist height. What I found is you can actually, because you're in VR, and generally with any VR game, you can kind of walk through stuff you're not supposed to walk through. You can clip through walls and other objects because it's VR. You know, you're floating. You're a free sort of floating camera. What I found is what I actually did is I went into the settings and I lowered my height, because when you first set up the game, you hold the move controllers and it determines how tall you are and then sets the camera height accordingly. So I deliberately went in, I manually set my height down to the lowest possible setting I can. So I'm basically almost like chin on the floor of the game. And what I did is I stood in the podium, and I actually crouched down in real life, on my knees, and I clipped through the podium completely. So I was actually fully inside the podium, and I could shoot out, but the bugs couldn't shoot in. It would hit the podium, but my bullets would go out. And it isn't like an absolutely 100% guaranteed way of not getting hit. I did fail a few times, but I managed to stay inside just the right angle to shoot out, and they didn't get me. And I did that to 100. And that's the only way I found doing it. I could do it. Because with like VR, you're using your own reflexes and I couldn't move the move controllers around quick enough, swing them around and shoot them and all of that. So, yeah. It sounds like a bit of a cheat, but that's honestly the only way I could do it. I tried it for 2 hours, and I was really, really struggling. So, yeah, that would be my tricky trophy.
Wow.
Yeah, it really sucks. And that's like, there's another hard trophy, but I'm not going to go into it, but that's probably the hardest one to do. Try and do legit, really, because you're just overwhelmed. It's just so many enemies fly up, and you've got to get 100. The highest I could do legit was 71, and that was after 2 hours of trying. Just, it's ridiculous. And that's probably why the platinum's so rare at the moment, because people who've got this game probably can't do that. So I recommend cheesing it, to be honest. It will save you a lot of stress, I can tell you that's for sure. Right. So, guys, that pretty much brings us to the end of our end of that segment and to the end of the podcast. So, guys, have you anything else you want to add before we do wrap up?
Well, besides maybe the boosting channels for Little Big Planet Karting are now available to go for, I'll be helping people from Monday through Thursday. So if anyone wants to hop in and help out, just ping me in the channel itself, and I'll go back and help you guys. So you can get like the first place trophy, the 4 players in a pot trophy, and I think there was like one more trophy else, but I keep forgetting. So, and
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if no one else about anything else other than just the boosting channel, we will sign off, I guess. So, yep. Guys, we're going to find out where we can all find each other. So, Kai, are you active anywhere on any social medias you want to plug?
So I'll be in the Discord as always, like everyone else. You'll find me all in different channels, mostly in Monster Hunter and general channels. If you want to follow me, I am on Twitter. It's KAIPHX, then an underscore, because someone else has taken Kai Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, go for it. But that's it, really.
Okay, Vic, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DVictronic. Where can people find you, Claire?
Yeah, on Twitter, Clarity Gaming.
Awesome. And guys, you can find me on Twitter at the Dazil. So thank you for listening. As always, you can find our episodes on our YouTube channel, The Trophy Trust. Please support us there by subscribing for future episodes. You can also find updates on our Twitter at the Trophy Trust. There in a profile, you can find the link to our Discord, the PlayStation Trophy Hunting server, where if you haven't already, you can join our ever-growing community of gamers and trophy hunters. And just like to say at the moment, we've been getting a lot of new people in recently. Our community is growing. It seems to be growing rapidly. We recently passed 1,000 members, which is awesome. So thanks to everyone that's joined, and thanks to everyone who's sharing, the existence of our server. People seem to be just joining loads of people daily now, actually. We're always welcoming loads of people in, which is awesome. Where was I? If you enjoy our show, please consider supporting us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We're a strictly non-profit podcast. However, server hosting costs need to be paid to keep us on the air. This has been the Trophy Trust. Keep on hunting, and goodbye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.